All right, hey everyone, this is Miss V. Welcome to this new unit of Q3 Unit 2. Here we're talking about the nationalism and revolutions. And the first revolution we're actually going to talk about is the American Revolution because it's so close to how it's influenced by the Enlightenment thinkers. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so this is the standard. By the time we're finished, you should be able to evaluate the impact of Enlightenment ideas on the development of various structures in the Western world. But I want you to focus on this question: what causes revolution, and how does revolution change a society? How does those aspects of a revolution change a society in general? And that's what we're going to look at. This is one of the vocabulary words, the federal system. You're going to hear that mentioned throughout this particular set of notes, okay? And also, if you're doing the vocabulary side dish, here you go. Here's one of your words, all right? Okay, so question number 1 says, what are some of the causes of the American Revolution? Well, if you recall, Britain was involved with a lot of wars. One of those wars was called the 7 Years' War, okay? And they spent a lot of money on this war. But they needed to have more money to help cover those costs from the war, okay? So they figured, well, hey, why not tax the colonies? And we can get the money from them. Okay, because the colonies, the 13 colonies, remember, were under British rule. Okay, so they started taxing the colonies as a way to maintain their army so that they can continue to defend the colonies and also defend themselves being involved in these wars. So they issued what was called a Stamp Act of 1765. The Stamp Act required that all printed materials like legal documents and newspapers and so forth show a stamp that has a certain tax on it. So for example, mail, when you go to the post office, they put a stamp on a letter. That stamp has a certain amount of tax that you pay in order for it to be posted. Same thing here. In a different sense, they are putting a tax on those stamps to let them know that they had to pay an additional fee to help cover the cost of war, okay? Not only did they issue the Stamp Act, they had other acts such as the Tea Act, the Townshend Act, a lot of different acts that was passed that required taxes. So the colonists in the 13 colonies got highly upset, and they said, this is enough, we're done with this, we're not paying any more taxes. And if you remember, that's how the Boston Tea Party got started, where they threw tons of tea into the harbor, in the Boston Harbor, and as a way of resisting or defiance against all of these acts or laws or tax laws that Britain was passing. So because of that, now they issued the colonists in 1776. As you see here, the Second Continental Congress sat down and they wrote the Declaration of Independence. Declaration literally means that I am declaring my independence. So in this case, the 13 colonies have officially declared their independence from Britain. Of course, Britain didn't like this, so this is how the American Revolution started. Okay, when this political document was out in the public and it was sent to Britain and the crown, they're like, no, this is not going to work. Okay, and that's how the American Revolution got started. But what caused it was these taxes, because they needed to help fund their army, Britain's army. Okay. For the question number 2, the Enlightenment thinker that influenced the Declaration of Independence was John Locke. His 2 treatises of government, that whole thing that you did before in your Enlightenment stations, life, liberty, property, all of that influenced the Declaration of Independence, which was written by Thomas Jefferson, and he included a lot of the wording of the treatises of government that John Locke wrote in the Declaration of Independence. So that's why a lot of things seem similar or familiar in terms of that when you hear the Declaration of Independence and you hear about John Locke. Okay. All right. Number three. Which country helped American colonists to fight against Great Britain? That was France. Okay. Remember, France and Britain did not get along too well. Okay. Excuse me. The French supplied arms, and they also supplied money to the colonists to help defend themselves. And actually, the United States has a lot to owe to France, because if France did not supply them the arms and the money that they needed to defend themselves, it could have been quite easy that America or the colonists would have lost to Britain, because Britain was that powerful. However, France sent a lot of their men to the colonies to fight, and also supplying those arms and money to help them. Okay. With the signing of the Treaty of Paris as well, France officially recognized the American colonies as independent, and now as a independent country from Britain as well. So again, the United States today they owe a lot to France for that. Okay. And then America also, or the colonies also was able to gain a lot of territory west of the Appalachian Mountains, towards the Mississippi River, which we now know as Louisiana, Mississippi, all of those states. Okay. And that's number 3. Okay. And this is a painting of the Treaty of Paris. And this is the way the Treaty of Paris looks like. This is what it looks like. As you see, very ornate handwriting styles and the wax seals on the bottom. John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and I can't see the others. John Jay, and I can't see the other one. All right, number 5, 6, and 7 is here. Sorry, not 5, 6, and 7. This is number 4. So this is number 4. Describe the Articles of Confederation. So once the colonies were able to overthrow British rule, right? Now they have to establish this government. But remember that they don't want to establish a government like Britain. They did not want to have an absolute monarchy. They didn't even want to have a constitutional monarchy. They did not want to have a monarchy, period. So now they have to establish this new government. What is it going to look like? What is it going to feel like? Do they want to have this strong central government that Thomas Hobbes said that we needed? They disagreed, okay? And they created what was called the Articles of Confederation, which was the first constitution of the country, okay? However, it was very weak because the central government lacked power in order to help contain the nation's problems that they had. Of course, they just exited out of a war. They needed structure, okay? So that's your answer for number 4. It was the countries or colonies' first constitution as an independent state or independent country, but it was very weak in terms of a central government. So they needed to have more power and a stronger sense of government or centralized government to make sure that they can deal with the problems that the nation was facing. So delegates met in Philadelphia to revise the Articles of Confederation, known as the Constitutional Convention. All right, so this is 5, 6, and 7. With the establishment of the Constitution, what they did at the Constitutional Convention, they proposed a new system or different way of system. I want to say new, but it was different. They created a federal system where there is a national government, so you have that, you still had that strong government or strong central government, which was located at some point, it was in Maryland, Virginia, so to speak, but then it moved to Washington. But they still would have that strong central government, but the power of the government would be shared among states and in locales, right? In local regions. So the federal government did not have all of the power. Even though it was still strong, that power was shared among the colonies, okay? In that central government, which is your answer for number 6, powers were separated into 3 branches, as you well know: executive, legislative, and judicial branches, okay? Executive is the president, legislative is the Senate and House, and judicial is run by the Supreme Court, okay? And that was influenced by, of course, you had this in your bell work, Montesquieu, Baron de Montesquieu, okay? Because he talked about the separation of powers, right? Cool. Let's continue. And this is the Constitution, okay, or an image of the Constitution. It's very well protected to this day. And our last questions 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. How many amendments were added to the Constitution? Well, first there was 12 amendments proposed to the Constitution, but the states, and realize that we're talking about states as in each state of the country, right? Because they're no longer colonies anymore, they're now states, right? So the states approved of 10 of those amendments. Those 10 amendments, which is your answer for number 8, and we're going into number 9. Those 10 amendments are now called the Bill of Rights. They became known as the Bill of Rights, okay? Those Bill of Rights guarantee freedoms of religion, arms, speech, press, petition, and assembly. And that's just the first one. There's a lot more, okay? There's a lot more, but the Bill of Rights is the first 10. And that's the First Amendment, okay? You should know all 10. You should. Number 11, John Locke was one of those philosophers or Enlightenment thinkers that helped to propose the idea of having these natural freedoms or natural rights, such as freedom of religion, arms, speech, petition, press, assembly, etc. Also, Rousseau influenced a lot of the Bill of Rights, right? Freedom of speech. Voltaire also gave those ideas with freedom of religion. Okay, so a lot of those Enlightenment philosophers that we talked about influenced a lot of those things in the Bill of Rights. Okay. And last but not least, how did European intellectuals see the American Revolution? They saw that as a confirmation of their ideas. They're saying, hey, look at what happened here. Look at what the American colonies did. We're right. They don't want, a strong government. They don't want you to tell them what to do. They want to have freedom. They want to be able to say what they need to say, without having the government tell them what to do. So they saw that as a confirmation of their ideas, okay? So that's how the American Revolution impacted not only Europe, but they also impacted the Western world, because a lot of things changed after this American Revolution. Once this American Revolution sparked, a lot of things popped off, okay? Not only in the Western world, but also in Europe, particularly in France, okay? And we'll talk about that in the next video. I'll see you soon.